And welcome to our 48th reading of the Ramāyana, the Ramcharitamanas. We started last year, right after Ram Navami, and we continue, and we're in the last part, the Uttarakhand part of the Ramcharitamanas. So continuing the reading for our 48th week. The moon flooded the earth with her rays, while the sun shone just as much as was necessary. Similarly, clouds poured forth showers for the mere asking, so long as Sri Ramachandra wielded the scepter. The Lord performed myriads of horse sacrifices and bestowed innumerable gifts on the Brahmanas, the defender of the Vedic usage and the championess of righteousness. He transcended the three modes of Prakriti, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, and was another Indra, the Lord of Paradise, so far as enjoyment was concerned. A mine of beauty, virtuous and meek, Sita was ever devoted to her Lord. She knew the greatness of the all-merciful Lord and adored his lotus feet with a devoted heart. Although there were many manservants and maidservants in her palace, all expert in the art of service, she did all the household work with her own hands and carried out the behests of Sri Ramachandra. Sita invariably did what would afford delight to the All-Merciful, conversant as she was with the art of service. Devoid of pride and conceit, she waited upon Kausalya and all the other mothers-in-law in the palace. Uma, continues Lord Shiva, Sita was no other than the goddess Rama or Lakshmi, the mother of the universe, who is adored even by Brahma and other gods and is ever flawless. The same Lakshmi whose benign look is carved by the gods, but who never casts a glance at them constantly, loves Sri Rama, lotus feet, forgetting her natural majesty. All the younger brothers served the Lord with great fidelity, for their love for Sri Rama knew no bounds. They ever kept gazing on his lotus face in the hope that the benign Lord might give some order to them at any moment. Sri Rama too loved his younger brothers and taught them wisdom of every kind. The citizens led a happy life and enjoyed all sorts of pleasures which even the gods could scarcely obtain. Day and night they prayed to God and sought to have the boon of devotion to the feet of Sri Rama, the hero of the Raghu's line. Sita gave birth to two pretty sons, Love and Kush, by name, who have figured in the Vedas and Puranas. Both these boys were victorious in battle, modest, accomplished, and handsome, the very images, as it were, of Sri Hari, or Rama. Sri Rama's other brothers, too, had two sons each, preeminent in the comeliness of form, merit, and virtue. The same Brahma who is beyond all knowledge, speech, and sense perception, nay, who is unborn and transcends Maya, that is Prakriti or matter, the mind and the modes of Prakriti, and his truth, knowledge, and bliss solidified, exhibited the ideal behavior of a human being. After taking a bath in the Sarayu early in the morning, the Lord sat in an assembly of Brahmanas and holy men. The sage Vasishtha expounded the Vedas and the Puranas, while Sri Rama listened to the exposition, even though he knew everything himself. He took his meals with his younger brothers, and the sight filled all the mothers with joy. The two brothers, Bharata and Shatrughna, would accompany the son of the wind god to some grove, where he would sit and ask Hanuman to expatiate on Sri Rama's virtues, and Hanuman would plunge his sound intellect into the ocean of his virtues and then recount them. The two brothers derived much joy from the discourse of his immaculate virtues, and with the much entreaty had it repeated again and again. Everywhere, in every house, the people recited the Puranas and narrated Sri Rama's holy exploits of a diverse character. Men and women alike who joined in hymning Sri Rama's praises, and days and nights passed on unnoticed. Not 1,000 sachas could tell all the happiness and the prosperity of the people of Ayodhya, where Sri Rama reigned as king. All great sages like Narada, Sanaka, and others came to Ayodhya every day to have a sight of the Lord of Koshala, and forgot all their indifference to the world the moment they saw the city, with its attics built of gold and jewels and having splendid pavements laid in diverse colors. A most beautiful boundary wall with its battlements painted in different colors enclosed the city on all sides, as though the 9 planets had mustered a large army and besieged Amravati, that is Indra's capital. The ground, the streets and squares, etc., was so beautifully paved with crystals of various colors that the mind of the great sages would be enraptured by the sight. The white palaces were so high as to reach the skies, their shining pinnacles put to shame, as it were, the effulgence of the sun and the moon. Latticed windows made of diverse precious stones shone here and there, while every house was lit up with jewels that served as lamps. The mansions were illumined by jewels that served as so many lamps and had shining thresholds made of coral, pillars of jewels, and walls of gold inlaid with emeralds, which were as lovely as though they had been built by the Creator, Brahma himself. Beautiful, charming, commodious as the palaces were, they had their courtyards, inworked with crystal, and every gate thereof was provided with doors of gold embossed with diamonds. Every house equipped with a hall adorned with lovely frescoes, which had Sri Rama's exploits reproduced in such beautiful colors that they would ravish the soul of a sage who looked at them. Everyone had a flower garden planted in the characteristic design and trimmed with the greatest care, in which beautiful and lovely creepers of every variety blossomed all year round as in the vernal season. Bees hummed in a pleasant strain, and a delightful breeze breathed cool, soft, and fragrant. Birds of all kinds reared by the children sang in melodious notes and looked graceful in their flight. Peacocks, swans, cranes, and pigeons presented a most lovely sight on the houses, warbling and dancing in a variety of ways at the sight of their own shadow, reflected everywhere on the glossy surface of the roofs and balconies, etc. The children taught parrots and minus to repeat the words Ram Raghupati, the Lord of the Raghus, the protector of his devotees. The gates of the royal palace were magnificent in every way. The streets, crossroads, and bazaars were all splendid. The bazaars were splendid beyond description. Things could be had without any consideration there. How could anyone describe the wealth of the city where the abode of Lakshmi himself reigned as king? The cloth merchants, bankers, and other dealers sat at their shops like so many kuberas, that is, gods of riches. And all men and women, children and aged folk alike, were all happy, all of good conduct and comely in appearance. Apart from the other ghats and situated at some distance from them was the fine ghat where the multitudes of horses and elephants went to drink. There were numerous most charming ghat for women to take water from, where men did not bathe. The best of all and beautiful in every way was the royal ghat, where men of all 4 castes could bathe. All along the bank stood temples sacred to the gods and surrounded by lovely groves. Here and there on the river bank dwelt sages and recluses unconcerned with the world and devoted to spiritual wisdom. All along the bank stood in clusters many a lovely tulsi plant reared by the hermits. The splendor of the city defied all description. Its outskirts, too, were most picturesque. The very sight of the city, with its groves and gardens, wells and ponds, drove away all one's sins. Its peerless ponds and tanks and charming and spacious wells looked so beautiful with their elegant flights of steps and limpid water that even the gods and the sages were fascinated by their sight. The lakes were adorned with many-colored lotuses and resounded with the cooing of numerous birds and the humming of the bees. And the delightful gardens seemed to invite the passers-by through the notes of the cuckoos and the other birds. Is it ever possible to describe the city of which Rama's Lord was the king? Anima, the power of assuming atomic size, and all other superhuman powers, and even so joys and riches of every kind, stayed in Ayodhya forever. Everywhere men sing the praises of Sri Rama, the Lord of Raghus, and even as they sat, this is how they exhorted one another. Worship Sri Rama, the protector of the suppliant, the home of the elegance, amiability, beauty, and goodness, who has lotus-like eyes and swarthy limbs, who looks after his servants even as the eyelids guard the eyeballs, who is armed with a splendid bow, arrows, and quiver, and is staunch in battle, who delights the saints even as the sun brings joy to a bed of lotuses, who is Garuda, the king of birds, to devour the dreadful serpent in the form of death, who destroys the mean feeling of mindness the moment a person bows to him in a disinterested spirit, and who is a hunter to kill the herd of deer in the form of greed and infatuation, a lion to quell the elephant of concupiscence, the delight of his servants, a sun to scatter the thick darkness of doubt and sorrow, and a fire to consume the dense forest of the demon race. Oh, why should you not adore the hero of Raghu's line, ever accompanied by Janaka's daughter, who dispels the fear of transmigration, who plays the role of frost to destroy mosquitoes in the disguise of manifold latent desires, who is ever unchangeable, unborn, and imperishable, the delight of the sages, the reliever of the earth's burdens, the munificent Lord of Tulsidas. In this way, the men and women of the city sang Sri Rama's praises, and all merciful was ever favorable to all. From the time, O King of Birds, continues Kakabhushundi, the most dazzling sun of Sri Rama's glory appeared on the horizon of the three spheres, where all flooded with light, which brought delight to many and sorrow to many others. First, I enumerate at length those to whom it caused sorrow. To begin with, the night of the ignorance terminated. The owl-like sins hid themselves wherever they could. The white lily in the form of lust and anger crossed. Chakora birds in the shape of activities of various kinds, the phenomenal existence, time, and nature never rejoiced. Thieves like jealousy, pride, infatuation, and arrogance had no occasion to display their skill in any quarter. Lotuses of every description in the shape of knowledge and realization opened in the pond of piety. Happiness, contentment, dispassion, and discernment, like so many Chakravaka birds, were rid of sorrow. When the sun of Sri Rama's glory illumines the heart of an individual, the qualities enumerated in the end grow with those mentioned in the beginning die away. One day, Sri Rama and his brothers, accompanied by his most favorite Hanuman, went to see the beautiful grove, where the trees were all blossoming and had put on fresh leaves. Finding it a good opportunity, the sage Shanaka and his three brothers, Sanandana, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara, arrived there. They were all embodiments of spiritual glow, adorned by the amiability and other noble qualities, and constantly absorbed in the ecstasy of union with Brahma. Though infants to all appearance, they are eons old. The sages looked upon them with the same eye and were above all diversity. It seemed as if the four Vedas had each assumed a bodily form. They had no covering on their body except the quarters, and their only hobby was to hear the recital of Sri Rama's exploits wherever it was carried on. Sanaka and his brothers, O Bhavani, continues Lord Shiva, had stayed in the hermitage of the enlightened sage Agastya, and the noble sage had narrated to them many a story relating to Sri Rama, which are productive of wisdom in the same way as the friction of two pieces of wood produces fire. Sri Rama saw the sages approaching and gladly prostrated himself before them. And after an inquiry about their health, etc., the Lord spread his own yellow scarf for them to squat on. All his three brothers, Bharata, Lakshmana, and Shatrughna, then prostrated themselves along with Hanuman, and everyone felt very happy. The sages were beside themselves with rapture on beholding the incomparable beauty of Sri Rama, the Lord of the Raghus. They remained gazing with unwinking eyes on the Lord, who is the abode of comeliness, and bringing about release from the worldly existence, and has a swarthy form and lotus eyes. The Lord in his turn bowed his head with joined palms. When the hero of the Raghu's line perceived their condition, his eyes too streamed with tears, and every hair on his body stood on its end. Taking them by the hand, the Lord seated them and addressed them in most charming word. Listen, great sages, I am indeed blessed today. By your very sight, all one's sins are wiped out. By extreme good luck, one is able to secure the company of saints. For through such communion, the chain of births and deaths is broken without the least exertion. Communion with saints is the road to emancipation, while that of the sensualist paves the way for transmigration. So declare the saints themselves, the men of wisdom and the learned, all as well as the Vedas, Puranas, and other real scriptures. The four sages were all rejoiced to hear the Lord's words, and with every hair on their body standing erect, they proceeded to him his praises. Glory to the Almighty Lord, who is infinite, immutable, and sinless, who is one as well as many, and all gracious. Glory to the Lord who is beyond the modes of Prakriti. Glory, glory to the ocean of goodness, the abode of bliss, handsome and the most urbane in manners. Glory to Indira, that is Lakshmi's spouse. Glory to the supporter of the earth, peerless, unborn, and dateless, a mine of elegance. A storehouse of wisdom that you are free from pride and yet bestow honor on others. The Vedas and the Puranas sing your sanctifying glory. Knower of the truth, you acknowledge the services of your devotees and destroy their ignorance. Untainted by Maya, you bear numberless names and are yet beyond all. You are manifest as all, pervade all and dwell in the heart of all. Therefore protect us every moment. Break asunder the bonds in the form of pair of opposites, such as heat and cold, joy and sorrow, adversity and mundane existence, and abiding in our heart, O Rama, eradicate our sensuality and vanity. You are the supreme bliss personified and the abode of mercy, and fulfill the desire of your devotees in heart. Pray, grant us the boon of unceasing love and devotion to your feet, O graceful Rama. Bestow on us, O Lord of Raghus, the most sanctifying devotion which destroys the threefold agony and the turmoils of transmigration. A celestial cow and a wish-yielding tree to satisfy the desires of the suppliant, the propitious, my Lord, and grant this boon. A veritable jar-born sage, Agastya, to suck up the ocean of mundane existence, O Chief of Raghus. You are easy to access to those who adore you and bestow all blessings on them. Put an end to the terrible sufferings caused by the mind and diffuse even-mindedness in us. O befriender of the meek, O banisher of hope, of gratifying oneself through self-indulgence, fear and jealousy, and etc., and propagator of humility, right judgment, and dispassion, crest jewel of earthly kings, and the ornament of earth. Grant us devotion to your feet, which serves as a boat to take one across the river of mundane existence. A swan that you are, constantly residing in the Manasa lake of the sage's mind, your lotus feet are adored even by Brahma and Lord Shankara. Glory of Raghu's race, custodian of the Vedic laws, devourer of time, destiny, Prakriti, that is the primordial nature, and the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. You are both the boatman and the boat to take your devotees across the ocean of metapsychosis, and the stealer of all vices, the Lord of Tulsidas, the jewel of the three spheres. Having thus extolled the Lord again and again, Shanaka and his three brothers lovingly bowed their head, and having obtained their most cherished boon, returned to Brahma's abode. When Shanaka and his brothers had left for Brahma's abode, the three brothers, Bharat, Lakshman, and Shatrughna, bowed their head at Sri Rama's feet. But being too modest themselves to interrogate the Lord, they all look at the son of the wind god. They wish to hear from the Lord's own mouth something which would eradicate all misconceptions. The Lord, however, who regulates the internal feelings of all, came to know everything and inquired, "Tell me, Hanuman, what is the matter?" Hanuman replied with joined palms, "Listen, O Lord, compassionate as you are to the meek. Bharata, my lord, wishes to ask you something, but he is too different at heart to put the question. Hanuman, you know my disposition. Has there ever been any secrecy between Bharata and myself?" On hearing the Lord's word, Bharata clasped his feet. "Listen, my lord, reliever of suppliant's agony. I have no doubts whatever, my lord, nor have I ever known any dejection or infatuation, even in a dream. It is all due to your grace, O all-merciful and all-blissful Lord. Yet, O the storehouse of compassion, I make bold to make one submission. I being your servant, and you the delight of your devotees. The glory of the saints, O Lord of Raghus, has been sung in various ways by the Vedas and the Puranas. You too have them exalted them by your own graceful mouth, and my Lord bears great affection for them. I would fain hear, my Lord, the distinctive remarks, O ocean of compassion, conspicuous as you are by your excellences and wisdom, O protector of the suppliant. Tell me clearly and severely the distinguishing traits of the good and the wicked. Here, brother, the characteristics of saints, which as told in the Vedas and Puranas, are innumerable. The conduct of saints and the wicked is analogous to that of sandalwood and the axe. Mark, brother, the axe cuts down a sandalwood tree, while the latter in its perfumes the axe by imparting its virtue, fragrance to it. For this reason, sandalwood in the form of paste finds its way to the head of gods, their images, and is loved by the world so much, which the axe has a steel edge heated in the fire and beaten with a hammer as punishment. Saints, as a rule, have no hankering for the pleasures of sense and are the very minds of amiability and other virtues. They grieve to see others in distress and rejoice at the sight of others' joys. They are even-minded and look upon none as their enemy. Free from vanity and passion, they are conquerors of greed, anger, joy, and fear. Tender of heart and compassionate to the distressed, they cherish guileless devotion to me in thought, word, and deed. And giving honor to all, they are modest themselves. Such souls, Bharata, are near and dear to me. Having no interested motive of their own, they are devoted to my name and are abodes of tranquility, dispassion, humility, and good humor. Again, know him for all time, dear brother, a genuine saint whose heart is a home of all such noble qualities such as placidity, guilelessness, friendliness, and devotion to the feet of the Brahmanas, which is the fountain of all virtues. They never swerve from the control of their mind and senses, religious observances, and correct behavior, and never utter a harsh word. They who regard both obloquy and praise alike, and who claim my lotus feet as their only possession, such saintly souls are dear to me as life and are veritable abodes of noble qualities and embodiments of bliss. Now here the characteristics of the noble, association with whom should be scrupulously avoided. For their company even brings woe. Even as a wicked cow ruins by her company a cow of noble breed. The heart of the wicked suffers terrible agony, for they ever burn at the sight of the other's prosperity. Wherever they hear others reviled, they feel delighted, as though they had stumbled upon a treasure lying on the road. Devoted to the sensuality, anger, arrogance, and greed, they are merciless, deceitful, crooked, and impure. They bear enmity towards all without rhyme or reason. Nay, they behave inimically even with those who are actively kind to them. They are false in their dealings. Lying is their stock in trade. Falsehood is their dinner, and falsehood their breakfast. Whatever they eat is intended to deceive others. They speak honeyed words, just like the peacock that has a stony heart and devours the most venomous snake. Malevolent by nature, they enjoy others' wives and others' wealth and take delight in slandering others. Such vile and sinful men are eating demons in human garb. Greed is their covering and greed their bedding. They wallow in greed. They are ever given up to sexual enjoyment and gluttony and have no fear of punishment in the abode of Yama, or the god of death. If they ever hear one exalted, they have a deep sigh as though they had an attack of ague. On the other hand, when they find anyone in distress, they rejoice as though they had attained the sovereignty of the whole world. Devoted to their own selfish interests, they antagonize their kinsfolk, are given up to sensuality and greed, and are most irascible. They recognize neither mother nor father, nor preceptor, nor the brahmanas, utterly ruin themselves. They bring ruin upon others. Overcome by infatuation, they bear malice to others and have no love for communion with saints nor for the stories relating to Sri Hari. Oceans of vice, dull-witted, lascivious, they revile the Vedas and usurp others' wealth. Though bearing malice to all, they are enemies of the Brahmanas in particular, and are full of hypocrisy and deceit at heart. They outwardly wear a saintly appearance. Such vile and wicked men are absent in the Satya and Treta Yugas. A sprinkling of them will appear in Dwapara, while multitudes of them will crop forth in the Kali age. That's the Yuga that we're in right now. Brother, there is no virtue like benevolence, and no meanness like oppressing others. I have declared to you, dear brother, the verdict of all the Vedas and Puranas. The wise also know it. Those who inflict pain on others, even after attaining the human body, have to suffer the terrible pangs of birth and death. Dominated by infatuation and devoted to their selfish interest, men commit various sins and thereby ruin their prospects in the next world. Figuring as Yama, the god of death, for their sake, brother, I dispense the fruit of their good actions and evil actions. Realizing this, those who are supremely clever adore me, knowing the circle of births and deaths as full of pain. They renounce actions which yield good or evil results and take refuge in me, the Lord of gods, men and sages. Thus I have told you the characteristic of saints and vile men. Those who have fully comprehended them are no more subjected to the process of transmigration. Listen, dear brother, the numerous merits and demerits are all products of Maya. The greatest merit is that they should cease to exist in one's eye. To discern them is ignorance. All the three brothers, Bharat, Lakshman, and Shatrughna, rejoiced to hear these words from their blessed lips of the Lord, and their heart overflowed with love. Again and again they showed him profound reverence. There was immense joy in the heart of Hanuman in particular. The Lord of the Raghus then retired to his own palace. In this way he enacted some new sport every day. The sage Narada paid frequent visits and sang Sri Rama's holy exploits. After witnessing fresh deeds every day, the sage returned to Brahma's abode and recited the whole story there. Viranchi, or the creator, felt overjoyed to hear it and said, Dear son, hymns his praises again and again. Sanaka and his three brothers extolled Narada, and though absorbed in Brahma, the infinite, the sages forgot their samadhi, or absorption. On hearing the hymn of praise to the Lord and listened to it with reverence, supremely qualified as they were. Even those, like Sanaka and others, who are liberated, though embodied and are absorbed in Brahma, hear the narrative of Sri Rama, even by interrupting their meditation. Truly theirs must be a heart of stone, who take no delight in the stories of Sri Hari. One day, invited by the Lord of Raghus, the preceptor or Vashishta, and other leading Brahmanas and all other citizens assembled in the royal court, when the preceptor and the other sages and Brahmanas, as well as the other gentlemen, had taken their seats, the Lord, who puts an end to the round of births of his devotees, addressed them in the following words. Listen to my words, citizens all. I'm not going to say anything out of attachment for you in my heart. I do not ask you to do anything wrong, nor do I make use of my authority. Therefore, listen to me and act accordingly, if you please. He is my servant, and he is dearest to me, who obeys my command. If I say anything which is wrong, brethren, be not afraid to correct me. It is by good fortune that you have secured a human body, which, as declared by all the scriptures, is difficult even for the gods to attain. It is tabernacle suitable for spiritual endeavors, gateway to liberation. He who fails to earn a good destiny hereafter, even on attaining it, he reaps torture in the other world and beats his head in remorse, wrongly attributing the blame to time, fate, and God. Sensuous enjoyment, brethren, is not the be-all and end-all of human existence. Even heavenly enjoyment is short-lived and ends in sorrow. The fools who devote their mind to the pleasures of sense, even after attaining human birth, take poison in exchange for nectar. None will ever speak well of him who picks up a peppercorn, throwing away the philosopher's stone. This immortal soul goes round through 84 lakh species of life, falling under 4 broad divisions, driven by Maya, my deluding potency, and encompassed by time, destiny, nature, and phenomenal existence. It ever drifts along. Rarely does God, who loves the jiva without any self-interest, graciously bestow on it a human form, which is a veritable raft where it can cross the ocean of mundane existence, with my grace for a favorable wind and a worthy preceptor for a helmsman to steer the strong bark, and a combination which, though difficult to secure, has been made easily available to all. The man who, equipped with all these resources, fails to cross the ocean of the metapsychosis and is ungrateful and dull-witted and meets the fate of a self-murderer. If you seek happiness here as well as hereafter, listen to my words and imprint them deeply in your heart. It is an easy and pleasant road, brethren, that of devotion to my feet, extolled in the Puranas and Vedas. Gnosis is difficult to attain and beset with numerous obstacles. The path is rugged, and there is no solid ground for the mind to rest on. Scarcely one attains it even after a hard struggle. Yet, lacking in devotion, the man fails to win my love. Devotion is independent and a mine of all blessings. Men, however, cannot attain it except through the fellowship of saints. Saints, for their part, are inaccessible without a stock of merit. Communion with the Lord's devotees, in any case, brings to an end the cycle of births and deaths. There is only one meritorious act in this world, and no other to adore the feet of the Brahmanas by thought, word, and deed. The sages and gods are propitious to him who guilelessly serve the twice-born, the Brahmanas. With joined palms, I lay before you all another secret doctrine. Without adorning Shankara, Lord Shiva, man cannot attain devotion to me. Namaste. So that basically concludes our 48th week of reciting the Ramcharitamanas. It was really nice to be able to hear Lord Rama's extolling how important it is and how lucky we are to have this human birth and how we can cross this samsara of existence using this human birth. So we'll start Aarti at 6 o'clock and then there'll be darshan and tilak, and the temple should open in a few minutes.